Thank you so much, everyone, for the attention and the attendance to this very important topic of trying to build, conservation from the ground up. So, from the community level, going to a more macro policies. So I'd like first to maybe ask an intro from our panelists. So please, Maya, if you could go first, talk about a bit of what you see in the Amazon and what kind of effort you think we should be taking, both at at the government level or at the private sector level.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. Great pleasure to be here with you, and also to be, in a certain way, representing my region, the Amazon, which is widely known in other countries. So taking your question, which is a very great one, from my perspective as an Amazonian, we see that the scenario is changing very fast in the region, meaning that we have new actors, projects, money coming from different types of capital, as well in the region. I can tell you the effort of my own state, the state of Pará, which is the second largest in the region. Our governor is taking a lot of action towards bioeconomy and protecting our biodiversity. So it means that we have a plan, how to do it. In the federal level, we changed the government, and for us, it's been quite positive in a way, because the communication between all the governmental levels are there. So the cities, the states, and the federal level. So it makes a flow of information, policies, and also investment. So we are seeing that. From the private sector, we have to understand that we do have companies, we do have investment funds, and we also have a civil society when we take that, as a whole sector. Again, it's changing a lot as well, because before we could see that we were more isolated from the rest of the country, and we are seeing that Brazil has discovered the Amazon, basically, and it is a very recent movement, meaning that now everyone is talking about the Amazon. But the truth is, what is that about? What type of Amazon we're talking about? Well, we do have the region, but we also have the brand. It's a worldwide known as a brand as well. Everyone now wants to use Amazon and in a certain way. So we are aware of it. But what is happening is that we need to mix up more in terms of people. Because what happens is, as Amazonians, sometimes or usually we are not part of the decision-making processes, either for public policies or for projects from the private sector. And this is an issue because the Amazon region is very complex cultural-wise, and we've been isolated not only geographically from the rest of the country, but also historically and emotionally as well. So everything that you try to do there, and you don't include the locals, you tend to waste money and time. And this has changed a lot in the recent years, because before, like 3-4 years ago, I was very approached by people from outside the region, from the country, but the way it was done, I would say it wasn't respectful to basically what was already being done in the region from the locals. Now it's changing a little bit, but yet the projects for the Amazon are not with the Amazon. So when you look at the team from projects, we don't see Amazon as part of the game, part of the team. So it means that we are creating something for, but not with. So that is basically the general scenario that I can actually share.
Terrific. Maybe to just put in perspective the importance of the Amazon and of Africa, and specifically Kenya, that Diana is going to talk about. The Amazon holds 1/3 of the world's trees and 40% of the world's rainforest, being that another 30% are in Africa. And out of the world's greenhouse gas emissions, globally, 20% are coming from us burning trees in the Amazon in Africa. And in the case specifically of Brazil, 60% of the emissions are coming from burning trees, basically. Out of the 2 billion tons, 1.2 are coming from deforestation and burning trees. And there's the question of legitimacy, as Maya put. You need to engage the local communities with the solutions, otherwise it doesn't really work. Diana, if you could talk, of course, Africa having 1.4 billion people, so a little over 20% of the global population and its importance for natural resources. What kind of a solution are you pursuing? And if you could talk a bit about, introduce yourself and your company or your efforts in the region and especially in Kenya, we would really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much. And good morning, everybody. And thank you for sharing this space with us. I'm very grateful and honored to be here today. I'm actually a co-founder of an ecosystem orchestrator. We are operating in West Kenya, as precisely in Siaya County, which is very close to Lake Victoria. And what we are basically doing is we are in conversations with African farmers and startups since the outbreak of the pandemic. And we had very in-depth conversations, actually, how can we uplift a vulnerable community from poverty to prosperity. And what we have learned is that one of the greatest game changer is to really focus on the post-harvest loss. So the farmers we are working with at the moment, there are 405 from Siaya County, and we have learned not only that they don't have access to basic infrastructure, no access to clean water, no access to education for their children and so on, we all know about it, but on top of that, the smallholder farmers, each of them facing a food loss of staggering 65%. And the purchase price of their produce is absolutely heartbreaking. And we strongly believe as an ecosystem accelerator that actually the farmer should be the richest person on this planet, yet they are the poorest. So what we are doing is we are collaborating, we're creating an ecosystem with the farmers together, have strong bonds with the local community, and we plug in different, at the moment, Kenyan startups who solve all of the challenges the farmers are facing at the moment, and so far very successfully. And I would like to add something to what you have said. It's so important that you have from the beginning of any project, especially in vulnerable communities, you need to have community buy-in. If you don't understand the needs of the community, of the people you work with, your project or your mission is going to fail, absolutely. So, and this is one of the things why we so much believe not only in technology, right? It's absolutely important. So we basically work a lot with value chain data traceability, with high logistic intelligence. But actually what I strongly believe is the most important core technology is really human precision technology. It's working from human core to human core. It's actually trust. So, and that's what we're also doing within our ecosystem accelerator in Kenya, work with the different technologies of the startups, but also to gain and maintain trust, because we're just working with 400 farmers, but just let alone Siaya County has 90,000 smallholder farmers. And on top of that, as you might know, Africa is really the youngest continent, right? And from a CO2 emission perspective, it has the lowest CO2 emissions, but where it's really lacking is actually the social foundation, if we look at the donut economy model, right? So, and we are basically there in this area, and we want to scale throughout Africa to also really impact social ecosystems as positively as possible.
Terrific. Thank you, and congratulations for your efforts and important work. You touched upon two aspects that I would like to hear Maya's view and opportunities in the Amazon. One, you mentioned, Diana, the donut economy, that it's important, to attract investments, to attract to the ecosystem, not just to focus on financial results, but a broader look at how we measure returns, right? Not just financial money, but also social return, environmental return, on a more holistic view. And also the use of technology. Maya, could you please give a couple of examples of the investment opportunities that you see in the Amazon so that we can value more or attribute more value, to the communities and to the ecosystem there? And maybe if you can think of or show a couple of examples on the use of technology for these efforts. I don't know if there is much of an application of technology per se, but on this holistic view of the donut economy and the triple bottom line and the kind of investment opportunities that you see in the Amazon forest.
Right, so I'm going to divide that into two parts. The first one about technology. Interestingly enough, disruption in the Amazon when it comes to technology is very simple. It's access to internet. Basically, the vast majority of people, if you take the whole region, don't have access to internet. I currently live in a traditional community close to Belém, which is, by the way, confirmed as a host for the COP30 in 2025. So I only could move to this place because there was internet available. Otherwise, I couldn't work. But yet, at 5:30 in the evening, I can't make any call because the internet is not great. So the next step, if I want to improve, I had to get from satellite, and it is extremely expensive. So responding to your question, when it comes to the Amazon, we have to understand that the logic there might be very, very different from other places in the world, even in Brazil. So if you want to make a huge disruption in the region, we have to make internet available, accessible to everyone. So the impact that can have on the grassroots, on the ground, is huge. Imagine that we are talking about a region that is the whole size of the European Union together. This is basically the size of the region, the Brazilian Amazon. So when indigenous people, they are having problems with their lands, how can they communicate to, the local policy, for example? So if they have access to internet, they can do it immediately. But if they don't, it's quite difficult to actually make communication happen. So this is the importance, just to give an example of the importance of internet for us. But then we can go to another level, to the cutting-edge solutions and technologies like artificial intelligence and so on. So Google has created a whole brand, actually, only focused on sustainability. And they have a couple of projects done with partnerships regionally. And it's quite interesting what they want to do, because as they have satellite images, that can be used to understand the size of deforestation in the region, for example. So that's why they work in partnerships, because they can't have the access to the grassroots problems, but they have the technology. So when we do it together, we can make solutions happen. So Google has done that so far. They do have a very interesting project that actually grabbed my attention. It's called in English, Digitais da Floresta. So basically, they can understand it, with technology where a tree comes from, because they know that this tree technically have the same chemical and physiological aspects of the land. And they want to use that to identify if a tree specifically is illegal or not. So it's very interesting how technology can help, but yet it's about people at the end of the day, because if you have technology but you don't have people, nothing happens. So that's basically that's the message about technology. Internet access is disruption in the region. Now, going to investment opportunities. What I say now, maybe in 3 months it will not be there anymore, because it's changing so fast. I see a lot of opportunities for blended finance in the region. Because basically, if a VC, for example, from the United States wants to do any investment there, $1 million is 5 million reais. So, for us there, it's a lot of money. It means that our ecosystem is still a bit incipient. So we need a lot of investment, that can buy the risk. So now is the moment for blended finance. That's what I can say. But if you want to move forward a little bit, I would say that the average ticket is between $1 million to $3 million. And where are you going to direct this money to? Well, from my experience in talking to, entrepreneurs, it goes for bioeconomy. But again, bioeconomy itself is a very, huge sector. And we have to understand exactly what type of, businesses in bioeconomy we're talking about. In this case, I'm talking about biocosmetics, for example. We do have companies in the region that need to grow. They need actually beyond money. And this is the opportunity that we have there for this type of ticket. But I know that people want to invest, for example, more in traditional communities. So that's a pretty hard job to do. Why? Because it's not about money. Why do I say that? Because we need to build the processes. And these processes have to make sense for everyone. It has to make sense for the investor. They also have to make sense to the people there. And this is actually when we have the clash, lack of understanding. Sometimes it's language, because the vast majority of Brazilians do not speak English. That's the first point. But it's about, it's not language itself, but understanding each other's sector, where we're coming from.
The value systems. Yeah.
Absolutely. So that's basically what happens there. I would say that if you have $1 million, we do have a lot of opportunities, but yet you need to find exactly how to make that happen. And usually the entrepreneurs in the Amazon are not yet used to investment language. So it's a lot of effort, but it is possible.
Nice, a hopeful message. Diana, as Maya mentioned, and as we know, there's a lot of money, of course, in the global north. That money, our challenge, for your company, for your efforts and for Maya's, is to get, attractive investment opportunities in, Kenya, in the Brazilian Amazon, to bring this money down. It's kind of a sign, that the attendance here is, lower, or there are fewer people who want to listen about the global south relative to the global north, and that usually leads to opportunities. So if you could give a couple of examples of your efforts to, attribute more value to the work of the farmers and the communities in Kenya, and how to make it attractive for, the investor in the global north to bring the money to Africa, to the global south.
So first of all, we strongly believe in regenerative agriculture and economy, right? So it's really about how much can we give for all we get, first of all. So I think there are absolutely amazing investment opportunities throughout Africa, exact at this moment in time, and yet we really push for green growth. Right, so it's really about how can we regenerate social ecosystems, how can we regenerate the cultural and financial ecosystems as well, and the capital. So strongly, we can't do the same mistakes we are doing in the global north, right? And if we look at Africa, we have almost very little CO2 emissions, and the question is, how can we together, and I don't want to say empower, because Africa is really strong on itself, but how can we collaborate together towards a really good future for all of us? And beyond exploitation. And there is so much potential, especially if we look in the agricultural sector. It's not yet fully, let's say, I say this very consciously, contaminated, right, by Western practices, also by chemical fertilizers and pesticides. So the majority of the African farmers, they actually do regenerative agriculture without knowing it. So, so I think there's great potential in really cultivating healthy soil. If we have healthy soil, right, we have a healthy planet. And that's something I would really like investors to look into, how we not only measure and impact the financial flows, but actually how do we measure wealth itself and find a new narrative. And there is so much actually to do in Africa because, as we said earlier, it lacks the social foundation, right? So, and economic growth, of course, it's important. It's a great driver to also give access to education and all the other basic infrastructure. And for me, it's really about a regenerative agriculture, regenerative economy.
Are there already?
And
Oh, sorry.
it's hard. It's hard, right? So when we talk to people and we share our results, right? During the last 6 months, we have tripled the revenue of each farmer. You know, it's untapped potential. And if you look at, we have more than 900 million smallholder farmers throughout Africa. And with our ecosystem approach to really work together with all the startups on the different challenges, it really shows that it's not only about the money. And I think we all agree on really, it's really also about building connections and partnerships and to mutually care for our earth. So the question is for all of us, how can we really move away from the actual GDP and how can we measure the impact on the social, emotional, health, and whatever level? I think that's super vital. And I think, as we discussed earlier today, it's really about the shift in the mindset. And we are all part of one organism, right? It's this blue, precious planet. So, I think it's fundamentally that we look into more, I call it soft or social investments. Yeah.
And does technology, I imagine it plays an important role to reduce the information asymmetry so that people, you know, from outside Africa, Kenya specifically, get to know about this kind of opportunity, right?
Yeah.
Lots of startups working on that, you know, giving more
So we have many
transparency to that.
startups, and we are attracting more and more at the moment. So at the moment, we are collaborating with 5 startups, and there are more already. We are also having conversations, or our advisory board consists of many Africans from 6 different countries, and they're actually waiting that motherland could also build a hub in their specific regions. Yeah.
Very nice. We have, you know, a little over 2 minutes left. Maybe a final message for all the investors, funds, VCs that are here, you know, watching us or watching you. Do you want to go first, Maya?
Yes, with pleasure. I used to say that we have to think, obviously, of return of investment, but I also tend to use return of impact. So we can think of still the same letters, but return of impact, I think, is the message. It can come together, and it should.
And then it's obviously tends to be more permanent or more sustainable than just purely financial focus. And you, Diana, what do you want to?
Yeah, so it's just really, so my core message is, how much can we give for all we get?
Mm-hmm. Right. Well, thank you so much. Congratulations again. And I hope that we were able to, you know, spark a bit of interest in sustainable investments with a social focus in both Brazil and Africa. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone.